I don't know if you've ever had the experience of stepping into a space and just being overwhelmed with the exhibits. This is the Atlantic Canada Aviation Museum. We're in Gough. We're just across the highway from Stanfield International. And this is about some analog technology, but we're gonna do something a little different with a simulator. And it'll all make sense in the end. And it has to do with a musician, the guy who composed the theme song for this show. And he's gonna take us on a little adventure and tell us the story of his Maritime machine.
Good, okay, so try and keep it. I'm using the rudder pedals to keep us down the center line.
All right, then we both won't do that, because that seems like a bad sign.
And we don't need to turn this, because we're turning the aileron. So once we reach, okay, rotate now, so we'll pull back. There we go. And we're off. Pull back a little more. There we go. There we go. Positive rate.
Gear up.
And the gear up.
All I see is sky. Okay, horizon.
Yeah, there you go. So
push the nose over.
Push the nose down a little bit. Okay. So you can push
pull
forward.
back on the throttle.
And then pull back on the throttle a little.
About 70%.
Sit down so it's about 70%. So you can pull that green guy. There we go. That's good there. All right. So now we're up in the sky.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. This is Nova Scotia. So you can see the 102 over there. If we dip our wings, but
we won't do that. Musician, an artist, a songwriter, performer, the guy who wrote the theme song to this show. Thank you for being a part of this. This is about machines, and we're in this environment right now. How long have you known about this place and space?
I've known about it for a long, long time, but you know, now coming here and meeting everybody here and putting the simulator in here, it's like a home.
And I have to ask, where did this passion for airplanes come from? I was a kid who was flown to Saskatchewan. I was probably 7. I wouldn't even know what kind of plane it was. But you get these distinct impressions. So where did it all start for you?
I think the very first sort of mind-blowing thing was going to pick my dad up. He used to work at Heathrow Airport. He was studying economics in London, and it was a job that he had gotten in the cargo department somewhere, and we used to go pick him up. And we'd wait for him on the bonnet of the Ford Cortina. And it was about, 200 meters away from one of the main runways. And my brother and I would just sit there and watch planes from all over the world. And one time we were traveling back to Sri Lanka to see my grandmother. Back when you could go up into the cockpit.
Right.
And so my mom asked whether we could visit. And when we went up to the cockpit of the DC-10, the captain got out of his seat and he said, "Go ahead, have a seat." And so I sat in the captain's chair, and then he said, "You can touch the controls." And I don't know if it was just my imagination, but I actually thought I felt the airplane move.
This was in the air.
Yes.
This wasn't just
This was in the air,
Wow.
flying over, probably somewhere over the Middle East, like going on the way from London to Colombo. And I'm sure, it's all in my memory, but I was in the seat and I was hooked. That was it.
And the aeronautic industry touched you so much that you wanted to do something special in your own home. When did this idea of building a simulator in your house happen?
It was just after I'd done an album, my solo album in 2013. Actually, it was funny because I read a Popular Science, like a list of the top 10 most technically driven careers in the world. And number 2 was sound engineer, and number 1 was airline pilot. And I was thinking, oh, that's kind of cool. And it's true, the amount of knowledge that you need to have working a studio is much similar. And also, to me, it was like, it's very, flying is very artistic. It's like, there's a feeling about it. And so the marriage of those two things made sense to me. And I had a big studio disaster where a fish tank, another passion, failed hobby. It broke. The salt water drained all in the studio, and insurance was great, but there was a bunch of equipment left over. I was sitting in my office with a bunch of TV monitors and stuff that they'd let me keep. And a friend said, "You should do something on YouTube. Everyone's doing these YouTube shows, like, cooking curry with Asif or something."
Yeah.
And I happened to have the flight simulator on the screen,
Yeah.
and all this gear. And I said, well, what if we took musicians on flights and talked about where they toured, because you're traveling in music, and he was like, what are you talking about? So that's how it happened.
And so Live from the Flight Deck was born.
I've been a musician and composer here for about 20 years, and I've always been trying to find a way to marry my love for making music and my love for aviation, and I think I found it. This is Live from the Flight Deck.
Had you ever done anything at that scale? I mean, building a studio is clearly, purpose-driven, but with a bent towards giving people the freedom to be creative, or yourself to be creative.
Yeah, I mean, I early on in the days of Mir, we sort of started recording ourselves, so we were nerdy enough to learn the computers and all of that. So, and then I like construction. Like, I've always liked building things, so it kind of all made sense to do. The internet, though, it's incredible, I just did a search, home cockpit. Because at first I was just taking old mixing desks and mounting them above me just to make it look like a film set almost. But then my friend, who was an industrial designer, he said, we can do better than this. And we just started looking for home cockpit building, and then it just blossomed into this huge rabbit hole of people that actually are crazy enough to build cockpits in their home. And simulators, so that's how it started.
And it was initially in a spare room in your house.
Yeah.
And what did your wife think of that?
She was actually really supportive. And at first, it started, this is a trick for anybody.
Okay.
You start slow and you just let it grow until it's, anyway. But it actually was our office, and it became a really cool place to hang out once it was built. I used to tell our son it's like a DeLorean sometimes.
88 miles per hour, and we go right back to 19,
right.
what?
Yeah. Well, when was it? 737's been in service probably since the early 70s? Yeah. With the little baby Boeing, we used to call it.
Okay.
The little...
So how many passengers would have been on an aircraft this size?
185, 180? Yeah, 180, yeah.
185. So here's this opportunity for you to have artists come in, sit down, and sing a song, perform a song. It was George Canyon. What was the first one? Was it Joel Plaskett?
Joel Plaskett, yeah,
Right.
That was the first one. Yeah, I'll never forget the time. I used to do it so that they didn't know. All they knew, they were going to come and talk to me about music and possibly the studio, sing a song, talk about touring. But then they'd show up and they were on the flight deck of a 737.
Alan Doyle, welcome aboard, man.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Wow.
We're sitting on the tarmac in Melbourne.
Well, so we are. Oh, you got to take the pilot's chair then.
Yeah, you're gonna fly.
I'm not sitting over it. Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool project to do, but it was just really difficult for me to keep up as one person. And so I sort of sat on it for a while. There was a feature film I was doing at the time, and it was just too much. And so it just sat there for a bit, and I thought I'd pick it up, start doing some more episodes. I still have some episodes in the can that have never been released. So then another year went by, a bunch of other things, and then the pandemic kind of started. Right. And I kept walking by the room going, oh my gosh, that has to go somewhere. Yeah. Because turning music, going and playing live was soon becoming very difficult. So I needed a place to actually do something.
Okay.
So I called Flight Sim Nova Scotia Club and asked if anyone had a garage or something that I might want to reconstruct this in. So John Ledard and Andrew Curry contacted some people, and one of them was one of the main fellows here at the museum. And at first they were like, oh, well, who is this guy? If you would like to bring it over here, let's check it out. So I rented a U-Haul, and I had slowly dismantled it carefully, and then it was living in storage for a while, so we went and picked it up and brought it here. And then the pandemic really hit. Right. And so it took a long time to put it together, but now they've improved it, and it couldn't have found a better home.
What do you do here?
I basically look after, maintain, and essentially operate and provide most of the the sessions with people that come in and book time on the simulator.
So the Atlantic Canada Aviation Museum, I see memories of previous episodes with the Harvard here. There are so many machines. Tell me how popular this simulator has become since you've installed it as part of this museum.
It's become extremely popular. Most of the operations usually take place on Saturdays, which is usually the museum's busiest day. And it pretty much has been booked fully every particular Saturday since we launched it, which was the first week of June as in last year.
And so many of the displays here are capturing history. And this is a little more modern. And some might go, well, does it fit with the theme?
The simulator itself, or the 737, does have a long-time presence in Halifax. One of the early airlines that operated out of here was Eastern Provincial Airlines, and they ran 737s. The very first actual commercial flight I was on was in a 737 from Eastern Provincial going to Montreal in that manner.
Now I see what you mean. It really does give you the perception of movement, even though it's a static.
Yeah, especially when we turn. We're just
Yeah,
kind of
turn towards waypoint 102. So bank right.
So we're gonna bank right now, Sheldon.
Give it a good bank.
We're gonna lose a bit of, but the nose will dip when we bank.
Okay, that's a good bank.
Go. And we're going to that waypoint.
Yeah.
Okay.
Level
So now
out.
we'll try and level out. You can see. There we go. And you can see how that that line.
Now you can bring the throttle back to about 65%.
65.
There you go.
The AvaJet Airlines Boeing 737. So AvaJet, tell me where that came from.
Well, our daughter's name's Ava, and our son's name is Jet, which to credit to my wife, she went for. When I suggested it, she's like, "That's cool."
Gotta
Right
do
out of the
it.
gate. So AvaJet Airlines, yeah. I've always been fascinated with airline logos and stuff like that. So they actually, when they were very young, they came up with all the colors for this thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, true family.
And the Hummingbird.
The hummingbird, yeah. Yeah, so.
So didn't it used to have a door over?
Yes, there was a door because that was where the door to that room, our spare room was. And right here, we'd be standing in the bathroom right now.
Oh, okay.
Of our upper floor of our house.
We're friends.
So
We're
there
okay.
you go. Exactly.
It's quite amazing the people that are interested in actually donating their aircraft, to the museum. So, which is, without it, the museum, of course, wouldn't exist. It's quite a variety, an eclectic bunch that are involved in operating the museum, maintaining things at the museum, and the museum is, trying to think of new and different things all the time, and that's when the opportunity to gain the use and the ownership of the flights of the 737 simulator, that it allowed the museum the opportunity to offer it essentially as an attraction, to bring people to the museum and actually experience something rather than just coming in and wandering around and looking at the airplanes. They can actually try and fly one themselves.
They did a survey not long ago, and they asked the general public, if you were in a situation and an airliner needed to be landed, do you think you could do it? And I think the statistic was about 50-50. But if you excluded the women, it was like 75% of guys think they could do it. So how realistic is this to what would be in the cockpit of a 737?
It is pretty much, there's, the crew here are constantly improving things. I had probably about 70 to 75% everything kind of accurate, and the rest was sort of film set, But now, because of the expertise here, they're improving it to actually become a fully functioning simulator.
Right.
So this is almost like augmented reality because you have the computer doing what can be done in a normal home flight simulator, but you've got actual buttons and devices to help you feel like you're actually doing the real thing. And it actually feels like when the plane banks, it feels like you're actually turning because the windows in the back, the passenger windows, they trick your peripheral vision, and you actually do feel like you're moving. Now, the similarities between music and flying. I've always made sense, but it was sometimes hard to convince people that music had anything to do with flying. You'd have the music people going, "Why are you in an airplane?" And for the show, it was the airplane people going, "Why are you playing a guitar in the cockpit?" Yeah. Except for one pilot, Air Canada pilot, he used to take his guitar with him.
Really?
All the time, and yeah.
Play up front?
Not up front, I don't think.
All right, so we're losing altitude.
Yeah.
What's he telling us?
He's saying sink rate.
Sink rate.
In other words, you're descending
Okay.
very quickly towards
We don't
the
want
ground.
that. The ground came up to meet us. I'm not interested in meeting the ground yet.
I think there'd be many people mowing their lawns, looking up, going, "What is that plane doing?"
Yeah, there's a lot of nervous people out in the...
Because we are quite low.
All of the artists and musicians that you had come in, I know that at least one of them was actually a pilot.
Yes, George.
George
Yeah,
Canyon.
Yeah, that's right.
So what was the experience like for them to sit in your machine in your house and take control of an airliner?
Yeah, it was really cool to get their reaction, because I didn't tell them that that's what we were going to be doing, because I knew that would only last for a little while. Right. So, like Rhea May, what is this? And Joel was the first person. So everyone has this huge reaction to it. But I think, you know, once you get comfortable and you're up there, you sort of lose yourself, and you actually forget that it's raining outside, because you're, you know, that's one of the nice things about flight too, because you're above the clouds, right? So it's always a sunny day. But landing was another story. I think Rhea overshot the runway and we went into the forest.
Okay.
But George was pretty perfect.
Part of your role is to help orient people, to give them that instruction inside if they've never done so.
That's right. The way the museum offers the experience is the individual books a session with the simulator, and then they sit with an individual that we operate essentially as almost as an instructor. Mm-hmm. And in that, we sit in the right seat. The customer sits in the captain's seat, and they do the flying. We don't fly the airplane at all for them, but we're there to coach them and give them instruction and give them insight as to what to do and how to actually fly the airplane. But they actually fly the airplane, and they get to do the landing. And we have not had anybody not be able to land the airplane yet. Set your trim, Asif, to about 5.0.
Where's my trim?
See that green area on that
yes, I see
engine
what you mean,
display?
yeah.
So this is a little different than the last time you flew it. It's been
It is, because these guys have
upgraded.
They've been making.
Pull that nose up.
Got it.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of functions that I was, you know, set to implement at the time, and then
That's
when
good.
I stopped it. But John and the crew here, Barry has done a lot of physical, like making it stronger. So because I never intended it to have people coming in and out,
Right.
You know, but
wear and tear.
yeah, wear and tear and stuff like that. So
Now set flaps for 15.
flaps 15.
And
See the
we have
airport
our
approaching
gear
us?
warning horn, so you want a lower landing gear.
Okay, so gear down. Does that still have to pump it, or?
No, it'll come down normally now.
How do we know it's down? Is there something here?
You'll see
Some lights down on the lower
Oh,
display.
there we go.
down there. See those
There they're
gears
on.
green?
Three
Yep.
green.
Nose gear, left gear, right gear. I'm sure thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people have driven by on the 102, and they've seen the Voodoo, they've seen the Lynx logo on that aircraft up front, and have no idea. I didn't know the main hangar here even existed. You can't really see it from the highway.
No, exactly. That's the most common thing, that people come in here and they said, we had no idea the museum was as big as this. And so it's quite a hidden gem.
That's a good way to put it. What's this room called that we're in right now?
Well, it's our Frank McClune Gallery, officially. Frank McClune helped us build this hangar 27 years ago because we didn't have enough space for anything that we had.
There's a lot of stuff in here.
And this hangar is full now, so
Wow.
we don't dare get any more aircraft at the moment. The simulator was a blessing because it has, with media attention and enthusiastic people who are flight sim lovers anyway, the fact that we have that now, we are constantly booked up with people wanting to fly it. So.
We actually have a nice range of simulators. We actually have our BAE 146 simulator. That was a plane that Air Atlantic and Air Nova flew here for many years. And we have it set up as a kid simulator, so they can get inside and play around in the cockpit, just like in the old days if you used to sort of set up and play bus driver or something. And they can play with the yoke and slap. They can move the throttle controls around.
It's built for that. It's built for that.
Exactly. It's more of a play set environment for them, but it's actually based on the real actual aircraft itself.
So you don't have to worry about mom and dad going, stop, don't, you're going to break it.
Nope, that's right. Exactly.
So how is this compared to, have you taken the simulator into a Cessna or another type of aircraft?
Well, it's interesting because a Cessna is a very different in a cockpit environment. So this is built to feel like you're in the 737. I suppose you could, somewhat feel like you're in a different Boeing. Airbuses, for example, have a joystick on the side rather than a yoke system. But yeah, you can do anything. That's the cool thing about the software is that you can fly pretty much any plane that's out there.
And anywhere. You can pick your
You can
destination.
pick your destination.
And
yeah.
you used to tie the guest into, or you used to ask them where they wanted to fly. And Alan Doyle was Australia?
Alan Doyle was Australia because that's where he had goes there a lot and does stuff with Russell Crowe, and he has a sort of a kinship with Tasmania because it's sort of like the Newfoundland of Australia. He told me so it was neat to be able to choose anywhere in the world that you could go to.
It's an absolute pleasure, man.
Oh, cheers, man. Thanks for having me aboard.
What a beautiful song.
This is one of the best flights I've ever had. I just said sorry to everyone in the cabin. We'll be landing in Sydney in just a few moments. Please buckle your seatbelts. Anyone in the can, now's the time to get out.
All right, Sheldon, it's all yours.
Oh, no. I'm not so sure I...
Just small little corrections
I know what I'm
to
doing
keep
here.
it lined
Keep
up
it.
just like you see it.
Okay.
Excellent approach angle.
A little bit to the left, yeah. 300 feet.
Well,
Now turn the auto throttle off and just move the throttle levers to disengage it. There, that's good.
Go. And we're going to hit the
Pull
flare.
back a little
Pull
bit.
back a little bit there. There you go.
flare, 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 flare!
Okay, push the nose over.
We bounced.
Okay.
Yeah, you bounced, but that's okay.
It's all right. It's not bad, not bad.
Oy.
Another one.
Oh, there we go. You did it.
Now we'll push her forward and
And then we'll go ahead.
hope for the brakes. Oh, man. That was awfully nerve-wracking for a simulator.
But you landed.
But you landed it.
I'm going to walk away. That's a...
Any landing you can walk away from is a
Pleasure
good one.
flying with you.
Oh, my
Thank you,
goodness.
John, for your guidance.
You're very welcome.
I'm sorry about your plane, Ava Air.